So a couple of years ago, this fabulous guy moves in up my street. He's handsome, he's smart, he's kind, he's strong, he's about my age, and he's single. So I visit him almost every day. But my husband isn't even jealous because the guy is, seen here, a 42-pound, 60-year-old common snapping turtle. His name is Fire Chief, and I would love to tell you today the story of how he came to live on my street and what he taught me. The fact that I fell in love with a reptile should surprise no one. In my job, I've been known to come home from canoodling with octopuses with hickeys to explain to my husband. I've also had the pleasure of working in a remote island off New Zealand where this giant endangered kakapo parrot decided to copulate with my head. For my first children's book, to my mother's dismay, I did not write about puppies or kittens, but I worked in a pit with 18,000 snakes. There's a saying that I have lived my life by that I want to share with you, and it goes like this: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And for me, the teachers that have appeared time after time have been animals. Because animals have so much to show us. They have senses that, in the words of Henry Beston, we have lost or never attained. And in their lives, they give us an example of patience, of courage, of fortitude. And they show us that there is usually more than one right way to get something done. So, Fire Chief has been such a wonderful teacher. I want to tell you how we met. We met where he was living in a house in Southbridge, Massachusetts. It looked like a normal house pretty much on this suburban street, except it was a limey green, and in the drive was a sign that said, "Turtle lovers parking only. Violators better shut the shell up." And parked in the drive was an ambulance, which would ferry injured turtles to the 1,000-square-foot basement turtle hospital in the home where these two ladies lived, Alexia Bell and Natasha Nowick. Fire Chief was one of their patients. So why turtles? Well, my friend Matt Patterson had been talking about this for a while. Before we went together to Turtle Rescue League to meet Fire Chief, he and I had been doing turtley things for a couple of years. He calls himself a turtle artist. Here's one of his paintings of a wood turtle. And he has been called upon to explain to his perplexed mother why he has become a turtle artist. He filled a whole page in a letter meant to impress her. Turtles were the first animals to orbit the moon. Turtles evolved at the same time as the dinosaurs, and yet they survived the asteroid impact 66 million years ago. And they are critical to the planet's biodiversity. Matt created this gorgeous painting of the world turtle. It's a concept that many cultures across the world share. So they want to show us that turtles are holding up the world. It's not a just-so story. It's really true. Turtles, like snappers, are the vultures of the pond. We would be up to our lips in dead creatures if it weren't for snapping turtles. Others, like sea turtles, Hanu, are keeping our reefs clean because they eat the algae that might smother a coral reef. And still other turtles, like gopher tortoises, dig these tunnels in which over 300 other species shelter. Native people were right. We owe turtle kind a great deal. And the founders of Turtle Rescue League, Alexia Bell and Natasha Noack, know this well. They also know that turtles, incredibly, are among the most endangered of all vertebrates. Many of us don't realize this because you see them sunning on ponds, but they're highly endangered, and this is because of all the usual culprits: pollution, climate change, their habitats are being ruined. But turtles have a worse time yet. For example, climate change, it's no good for anybody, but for turtles, in many species, the sex of the baby is determined not by chromosomes, but by the temperature in the nest. So if the temperature rises, you might get all one sex. If it rises further, you get boiled eggs. There's also an illegal trade in turtles. It's insidious. It has already wiped out so many species in Asia, and now the poachers are coming for our turtles. I read a story in which a researcher suddenly noticed 70% of her turtles had disappeared, and there was no skeleton, no shell left behind. Why? Turns out one of her graduate students had published the location of her study, and the poachers had combed the literature to find out where those turtles were. And then there's roads. It's very hard if you're a turtle to get across these roads. A study from SUNY found that along a busy road, if you're a turtle, every year you face a 10 to 20% chance of being killed. And many turtle species don't mature until they are 10 or 15 or 20 years old. And this is why Natasha and Alexia founded Turtle Rescue League. This was why Matt Patterson and I wanted to volunteer there. That's what brought us to meet Fire Chief in 2019. They agreed we could join them, and that was going to be in 2020. But a funny thing happened between 2019 and 2020, and we all know it was COVID-19. And the result of COVID-19, everyone was confused, people were angry, and our country was divided as never before. By the way, these turtles are just fine. They're living in Rhode Island, and their names are Port and Starboard. So everything was a mess by the time Matt and I showed up volunteering to work at Turtle Rescue League. But it was wonderful for us to be able to be engaged in the work of healing at a time of sorrow and fear. There were so many blessings for us during this rough time, especially getting to know this guy. Natasha told us his story. He was named Fire Chief because he summered in a pond next to a fire station. In the winter, he would cross the road and brumate or hibernate in a different pond. All the firemen knew him and loved him, although they didn't touch him because he was a snapping turtle. And then one day in October of 2018, when he was crossing the road from his summer to winter pond, he was hit by a car. His shell was cracked, his back legs were paralyzed, his tail wouldn't work. And the firemen knew this happened, and they saw that their friend had been hurt. But these brave men who run into a burning building to save you, they didn't want to pick up a 42-pound common snapping turtle. So they called the two skinny ladies you just saw, one of whom, by the way, is blind. And they came rushing out, rescued him, brought him to their basement, and there they put his shell back together. And by the time Matt and I met him, his shell had healed, but his back legs were still not working properly. Natasha introduced us by taking the lid off the tank. She dropped in a whole unpeeled banana, and out of the tank lurched this immense head. I wrote down it was as big as my thigh, which it wasn't, but it felt huge. I thought he was really impressive, but to tell you the truth, I thought he was also kind of scary. Well, that spring, we did all kinds of cool things with Turtle Rescue League. We took care of baby turtles. Many of them were hatched from eggs harvested from mothers who were slain when they were crossing the street and run over. So even if you're dead, Turtle Rescue League can help you. We were taking care of other patients. We were releasing healed patients. But we were eager to start our real work after the busy spring. Our new job that we were going to focus on was to devise a program of physical therapy for a 42-pound common snapping turtle, our friend Fire Chief. Most of the time, he wasn't actually in a wheelchair. We worked with him outdoors. And I'll never forget the time that Matt first took him out of his hospital tank, lifted him up, brought him up the stairs, and put him on grass for the first time since his accident in October 2018. He used his strong front legs and claws to pull himself forward. His back legs were moving, but they weren't able to hold up his belly shield or plastron. He kind of dragged the back of his plastron along. And so Matt would keep picking him up, and I would check his plastron to make sure that it wasn't being scraped. And none of the time was this snapping turtle hissing or gaping or biting. He was a perfect gentleman. And so this one time, the first time we'd taken him out, Matt and I got this idea simultaneously, which sounds crazy, but without a word, we both did the same thing. We reached out and petted the head of this beautiful, giant snapping turtle that we hardly knew. And that day, even though the world was beset with this awful contagion, our country was divided, the world was on fire, climate change was raging, but that day, Matt and I drove back to New Hampshire full of hope and promise. Well, it seemed that with each visit, Fire Chief got stronger and stronger. Alexia and Natasha cautioned us that he might never be strong enough to be let go. But Matt and I desperately wanted him to rule his pond again. So we dreamed of that day of releasing him. We went to Google Maps, and we found the pond where he'd lived. But we were horrified because that sweet little pond and the brumation pond across the street were separated by a state highway. It had just been a little lane when Fire Chief as a hatchling had crawled there 60 years ago. But now it was a road, and we knew we couldn't let him go there. But there's always more than one right way to do things. Matt and his wife, Erin, had been looking to move. They lived in a house in a town half an hour from us. We found them a house on our street. And this is the first thing that Matt did. He dug this pond, and this is where Fire Chief lives today, reminding us that we can all help in mending this shattered, broken, beautiful green world. Thank you.